You're welcome to a fresh edition of your program, Towards a Greater Nigeria. And tonight we'll be talking about issues relating to tax. There is no way you can grow your economy without proper and effective administration of tax. Here at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, we are experiencing the 133rd Joint Tax Board meeting presided over by the chairman JTB, and that's in person of Mr. Babatunde Fowler. When I say JTB, I'm talking of the Joint Tax Board meeting, where all the representatives of tax matters would converge all over Nigeria to deliberate on the way forward. I welcome you to this edition. Relax. It promises to be interesting, enlightening, and of course, educative. Don't go away.
Having identified some of the things needed to drive national development, the reality is that no component part of the national fabric can address all on their own. The federal government cannot do it on its own. In the same vein, states cannot attain absolute development on their own. Neither can local governments. The public sector cannot attain national development on its own. Neither can private sector operators maximize or optimize their operations. No non-governmental organization or community or individual can attain national development on their own. National development is a lofty end that requires uncommon harnessing of mental, human, technological, and administrative resources that a nation and a people can muster to make a country a better place to live. No sector can attain national development on its own. It is an end that requires collective effort and responsibility.
We are trying to get revenues from NNPC, from customs and excise to go to the Federation account.
Internally generated revenue, IGR, in normal day-to-day parlance refers to those revenue sources that are generated solely by the state and local governments. However, the real focus now is on deepening and widening the entire revenue base, especially non-oil revenue base, as collected by all tiers of government, and not just internally generated revenues as defined. What is of utmost importance is that additional revenues are optimally generated for the government, regardless of how it is collected. A major challenge facing the growth in the generation of revenue nationwide, beyond the typically mentioned administrative challenges being tackled at the Revenue Authority, is in the nature of our fiscal structure. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, in addition to dealing with the day-to-day challenges of improving tax administration for the benefit of all, is currently building a stronger tax administration system that is a win-win for all parties. Taking a lead role in the Joint Tax Board, the new administration of the Federal Inland Revenue Service under Mr. Babatunde Fowler beckons on everyone to put heads together in discharging the tax duties through collaborative efforts and spirit of teamwork.
Well, basically what we have done is that we have given all the states, all the taxpayers on our own database. We've also gone out on the streets to physically verify taxpayers who are not in the tax net. Within the last 1 month, FIRS has been able to add over 100,000 new taxpayers who had never paid any taxes to FIRS before. So you're looking at, apart from CIT, you're looking at withholding tax, you're looking at VAT. Likewise, we have at least 67,000 accounts that state boards never had on their database within the last 1 month that they have now. So it's an ongoing effort. We expect within the first quarter of next year to have at least 500,000 corporate taxpayers. And on the state level, we're targeting at least 5 million individual taxpayers who will come into the tax net, which will bring additional revenue. Now, the import of this, without prejudice to the passing of the 2016 budget, we believe that at least 8% of the revenue will be non-oil. Therefore, our task and our objective at the Joint Tax Board is to ensure that we increase the tax base and also increase the revenue.
When Mr. Babatunde Fowler engaged on the informal sectoral target, he had this to say.
Well, the informal sector is also part of the tax net, and we're also going to grow it. And with the passing of the presumptive tax, which allows us to estimate taxes of individuals in that sector, we believe that they'll also play their part.
The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, is statutorily the head of the Joint Tax Board, JTB, Mr. Babatunde Fowler. He makes it clear that his collaborative effort is not interested in taking any tax that is within the jurisdiction of other members of the JTB. This was contained in his opening speech at the 133rd meeting of the JTB, the Joint Tax Board in Abuja, on the 14th of December 2015, with the theme IGR, appraising collaborative efforts within the JTB towards widening the tax net.
This meeting basically will be anchored on reviewing our cooperation so far. But one thing that is certain, and I believe that all of us are quite aware, is that both the federal government and the state governments are relying on revenue, on non-oil revenue to fund their budgets. I have been called for a meeting of the joint finance committees of the Senate and the House of Representatives to discuss our revenue projections, which basically will affect the outcome of the 2016 national budget. However, based on some of the information that we have received so far, without prejudice to the outcome of the budget for 2016, I can assure you that at least 8% of the revenue is going to be expected to come from non-oil. As FIRS, our job basically is to fund 3 tiers of government. But the honest truth of the matter is that without the states also chipping in to this funding, the funding from FIRS alone will not be sufficient to meet the financial requirements of the states. Some states have been constantly in the papers trying to defend their position, trying to talk about how they're going to meet salaries, trying to ensure that the bailout funds were used as directed or for the reasons for which they were received. So the task before us is extremely enormous. And I believe both at the federal and the state levels, we're going to start looking at how we'll fund respective federal and state budgets, including the local government.
So you don't prepare? I don't prepare. Hey, then are you?
What happens when you dodge paying taxes? What happens when you arrange for fake tax papers? What happens when you corner tax proceeds? What happens when you engage touts to fix your tax?
Am I in trouble then?
Tax paying is a binding duty.
Binding Duty, the television docudrama series on taxation and citizen responsibility.
Showing on NTA International, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. and NTA Abuja, Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Binding duty. Brought to you by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
In its 50 years of existence, the Joint Tax Board has served as the major platform for the federal and state governments to ensure uniformity and consistency in the application of personal income tax in Nigeria. The board has also promoted best practices through experience sharing and peer review. Nearly every state of the Federation was ably there. Mr. Babatunde Fowler.
In our last meeting, I presented certain strategies, planks, as tools to be used to guide our collaborative tax operations. I have no doubt that we all understand the effects of establishing a harmonious working relationship between the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the state boards of internal revenue. I am also aware of the increasing quest for tax revenue by various governments, given the dwindling monthly revenue allocations from the Federation accounts in recent times. I therefore like to reiterate the need for us to intensify our efforts of enhancing tax collection through collaboration among ourselves. As you are aware, FIRS embarked on a nationwide VAT and withholding tax compliance checks exercise from the 12th of October 2015. The exercise, which is ongoing, is to educate the taxpayers on tax issues, improve voluntary compliance, reduce tax arrears, boost revenue collection, identify tax evaders through third-party transactions, gauge the level of our relationship with taxpayers. At the commencement of the exercise, I directed that the FIRS zonal directors and regional coordinators to reach out to the state boards of internal revenue with a view to conducting joint exercises as much as possible. An interim report has shown that some states took active part in the exercise, while some were unable to join. To date, I believe we have information from 29 states. I'd like to commend the cooperation of the members in exchange of taxpayer information, but it's my belief that a lot is still expected in this regard. At this junction, I'd like to assure you that I'll continue to give you my support and encourage you all in all ways possible in order to enhance our activities. I also like to remind us that the task before us is enormous, as our various governments rely on us in generating the needed funds to execute their programs and projects.
Indeed, the only far-reaching way of flooding the tax net is to engage a reliable third-party information. Reliable technology and the 36 states of the Federation and FCT allowed access under the unique TIN identification system, each to register their taxpayer into the JTB data. In fact, Edo State says that the state is equal to the task. Chief Oseni Elama is chairman, Edo State Board of Internal Revenue.
With the proactive nature of the state, and you're mentioning reforms in the system, what sort of reforms would you want to talk about? Tell us, give us an insight into those reforms.
There are both structural reforms. You have to look at the legal framework that sets up the Revenue Authority. You also have to look at the reporting lines of the Chief Executive of the Revenue Authority. You also have to look at the internal capacity for the Revenue Authority to be able to deliver quality service to taxpayers, and then ensure that you are able to optimize the IGR potential that are there in the state in order to provide the needed resources for government to carry out their development projects and provide social services. And like I say, in any reform, you can have all the well laid out procedures and processes. You have the computers to do automation, but the critical success factor is the human factor, the human resource. So if you don't have a well trained, skillful and motivated workforce, all of these other structures or infrastructures you put in place will not deliver the desired result. And for us in Edo State, from day one, we were quite apprehensive of this, and we set up a tax training institute where all of our staff must attend at least 100 man-hour training annually, both internal and externally, and be able to bring them up to date with the various tax laws and the various processes and procedures that were needed to deliver in the modern environment.
Alhaji Mohammed Issa, Permanent Secretary and Chairman, Zamfara State Board of Internal Revenue, hopes that despite all odds, his state is not deterred and optimistic that the future will be bright.
Not all connected to the fact that in Zamfara you hardly could find any private sector organization that employs up to 100 people, so to say. But be it as it may, we are trying to see we cooperate with the law and concentrate on the approved list of Collection Act. Those areas that were selected for state governments to collect, we are trying to pursue those areas vigorously to ensure we do not leave any stone unturned and tap as much as we can. We would like to, of course, call on the federal government, this has been done several times, that it should venture into the mining sector, develop the mining sector, and probably, who knows, it could surpass the revenues we collect from the oil sector. Exactly. In Zamfara, I can assure you we have a lot of gold, tantalite, columbite, and many other resources that are underground. They're there. They need to be tapped. But the federal government has to come in. The private sector has to also come in. Now, who collaborates between the federal and the private sector, I think, is the government in power. Yeah. It's up to them to ensure that it's done. We await when such companies are established, when such industries are established, and we will simply go for what is ours, which is the little revenue we can collect from such areas. But by and large, this question has to do with the economy itself. It has to do with the present government in power. It has to do with its own priorities. If they have the priority of prioritizing on the mining industry, why not? So be it. And I can assure you, Zamfara will be a different story altogether if that is done.
From Benue State, Mimi Orubibi is of the opinion that all leaking holes in tax collection must be blocked, and immediately.
States and the nation is in their need of IGR, increase in IGR.
What about that?
Because when you look at the OPEC price for $20 per barrel, then you begin to wonder if we are not able to meet up with $40 to $50, then what will happen if we are given $20 per barrel? And you know, for Nigeria, the benchmark was 38. So there's a shortfall of $18. Now it's a serious issue. Yeah. For me and the people of Benue State, one of the my governor have 5 strategies for his administration. And the very first one is called revenue security. Now, when I got into office, and then the first thing I looked at was revenue security in accordance with the strategy of my governor. My governor is a no-nonsense man, Dr. Samuel Utom. One thing he says, he would tell us, if you chop money, money will chop you. So being mindful of that fact, yeah. What I did was to say, hey, no more manual receipts. Now, the issue is this. The manual receipts that people receive, the monies end up in the pockets of somebody. The issue is there's money in Nigeria. If only we automate and electronically collect revenue. We've gone past the years of manual collection. Revenue now are going, taxes are going to be collected electronically. And that's what I've brought to bear.
On his part, the chairman, Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, Olufolarin Ogunsowo, opened up on some of the ongoing strategies Lagos is adding to the existing success story of the state's internal revenue collection mechanism.
For us in Lagos State, it has been a success story in terms of revenue generation. As you have said, Lagos State is the center of excellence. What we are trying to do now is to consolidate on the effort of the immediate past administration in expanding the tax net. And what we are trying to do is we want to leverage on technology to bring in the untaxed part of the taxable adults into the tax-paying family. What we have discovered in Lagos is that we have close to about between 8.5 to 9 million people that are supposed to be taxable adults, whereas at now we have less than 5 million of them that are in our tax net. So what we intend doing is we want to bring in the extra 3.5 to 4 million people into the tax net, and we have discovered that majority of them, close to about 80% of them, fall into the category of what we call the informal sector. So efforts that we have been making in the last couple of weeks is to make use of technology to bring this group of people also into the tax net, because our belief is that the more the merrier. If everybody is enjoying all the facilities that the government of Lagos State is providing, they should also fulfill their own part of the social contract by contributing their own quota to the revenue agency.
Mr. Achike Emejulu Joe, the chairman, Anambra State Board of Internal Revenue, is happy to be associated with the FIRS, especially in the area of ICT, where access to information has been made so easy via the data exchange regime.
As a result of our collaboration with FIRS, they have given us information, for instance, about 19,425 companies, limited liability companies, registered and domiciled in Anambra operating. With that information, we are able to access 2 of the company directors of these, and giving us about 40,000 company directors, whom hitherto we had no access to under the presumptive tax regime, to assess and possibly collect personal income tax for these directors. It has helped the state government to do more with less. It has also helped measures the Anambra State government has undertaken, has helped the state government to discover about 600 ghost workers, and has enabled the state government to continue to pay salaries of public sector workers, civil servants, without recourse to borrowing or going for bailout. The government have been paying timely every month state civil servants.
Well, Executive Chairman, and when I say Executive Chairman, I'm talking of FIRS, Chairman JTB. Having spoken with a lot of your colleagues at the state level, the cross-section of the people I spoke to said something very, very paramount, and that is the urgent need of automated data information, automated services, that would actually accentuate their effectiveness. As the chief executive at the national level, is there anything you can do to aid the states?
Well, we can only write on their behalf to their governors for states that are not automated. Let them understand that if they're going to grow revenue, they need technology.
Exactly.
That is the only solution. Once you have the right personnel, then they need technology.
This takes me to yet another question. While listening to your speech, you said, and I quote, on the issue of consultant, you did mention value-added consultancy. If there is no added tax, there should not be any payment.
That's
and
right.
When you said that, it struck me. This is different. It's never happened before. Is FIRS trying to key into the change agenda of the federal government?
Well, I mean, certainly, I believe we're part of the new government, and of course we have to follow change with the new government. No service, no pay.
Well, viewers, I must say it's been quite instructive, enlightening, and educative for me to have been able to attend the 133rd Joint Tax Board meeting at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja. And I hope it's been the same for you viewers watching out there at home. Next week, we will bring you a continuation of all that is happening within the tax industry in Nigeria.